On the morning of March 15, 1943, the transport truck's engine coughed to silence outside Kumersdorf's main testing facility as the March mist clung to the Brandenburg countryside. Oberführer Claus Richter adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles and checked his pocket watch. 0730 hours. Exactly as scheduled. 3 years of Wehrmacht service had taught the former telecommunications engineer that precision in small matters often determined success in large ones. Today's assignment promised to be significant indeed. The prize that emerged from the covered transport defied every expectation Richter had formed during his sleepless journey from Berlin. Sherman tank serial number WW2 sat on its trailer like a mechanical contradiction. Battle-scarred yet intact, foreign yet familiar, ordinary yet somehow threatening in ways Richter couldn't immediately articulate. Bullet scars peppered its sloped armor, and dried mud from Tunisian battlefields still caked its road wheels. But the Americans had built this machine to survive, and survived it had. "Herr Hauptmann," called Feldwebel Ernst Kruger, snapping to attention beside the trailer, "the prisoner transport arrives within the hour. Should we begin the preliminary examination?" Richter nodded, his analytical mind already cataloguing observable details. The Sherman's radio antenna configuration caught his attention first. A single whip antenna, unremarkable in design, but positioned with obvious thought to battlefield functionality. Jamais external communication equipment cluttered the turret exterior, suggesting an integrated internal system rather than the modular additions German engineers typically employed when upgrading tank communications. As Richter circled the Sherman with measuring tape and technical notebook, the second transport arrived. Staff Sergeant Tommy McConnell emerged from the prisoner vehicle with the careful dignity of a man who understood his circumstances but refused to be diminished by them. At 22, Mac possessed the lean build of a Midwest factory worker and the steady gaze of someone accustomed to solving mechanical problems under pressure. Despite 3 weeks in German custody, his posture remained straight, his expression alert. Oberleutnant Hans Weber stepped forward with measured authority, his pale eyes conveying the unspoken understanding that cooperation had limits both sides respected. Mac's gaze immediately found his former tank, and Richter observed the subtle tightening around the young American's eyes. Professional curiosity overcame diplomatic restraint. "Sergeant, you operated this vehicle's communication systems?" "Yes, sir," Mac replied in heavily accented German, his tone neutral but not subservient. "Radio operator, first gunner when needed." Richter gestured toward the Sherman's open commander's hatch. "The radio configuration, is this standard for American armor?" Mac hesitated, calculating how much technical information crossed the line from machinery into tactics. "For medium tanks, sir, yes. Every tank has the same setup. Every tank." Richter felt the first flutter of professional unease. German doctrine typically equipped only command vehicles with full radio capability, relying on visual signals and predetermined battle plans for unit coordination. But if every American tank could communicate independently— "While we examine the equipment," Weber suggested, his curiosity clearly piqued by possibilities he was beginning to imagine. The interior of the Sherman struck Richter immediately as both cramped and efficiently organized. American designers had prioritized functionality over comfort, creating a workspace that skilled operators could navigate instinctively even under combat stress. The radio installation commanded his complete attention, a level of integration he had never seen in German armor. SCR-508, Mac said simply, indicating the primary radio unit mounted beside the commander's station. 20 to 27.9 MHz, frequency modulation, 25 watts output power. Richter's mental calculations raced. 25 watts versus the 10 watts of Germany's standard FUG-5 system. But more significant was the frequency modulation specification. German tank radios relied on amplitude modulation, vulnerable to the electrical interference that plagued armored vehicles. FM transmission would provide dramatically clearer communication under battlefield conditions. The intercom system, Weber inquired, recognizing equipment configurations unfamiliar from his Tiger tank experience. Independent power supply, Mac explained, his professional pride overcoming tactical discretion. Tank commander, gunner, loader, driver, radio operator, everyone stays connected even if the main radio takes damage. No interference between internal communication and external transmissions. Weber exchanged glances with Richter. German tank crews typically relied on shouting over engine noise and combat chaos, with only essential communications passing through the radio system. The idea of constant coordination between crew members represented a fundamental philosophical difference in combat design. "May we conduct a functionality test?" Richter asked, his scientific curiosity overwhelming diplomatic protocol. Mac shrugged with studied indifference. "It's your tank now, sir." Richter activated the SCR-508's power sequence, immediately noting the rapid tube warm-up and smooth frequency stabilization. When Weber's voice crackled through the headphones with startling clarity, both German officers experienced the uncomfortable recognition that they were examining technology superior to their own. For the next hour, Richter methodically tested transmission range, frequency stability, and voice clarity, while Weber coordinated with observers positioned throughout the testing ground. The results challenged every assumption about American industrial capability he had maintained since the war began. At 2,000 meters, the SCR-508 maintained communication clarity that exceeded the FUG-5's performance at half that distance. Engine noise, which routinely overwhelmed German tank radios, barely affected the American system's transmission quality. But the moment that shattered Richter's professional confidence came when Mac demonstrated the system's channel selection capability. 10 preset frequencies, Mac explained with careful neutrality, crystal-controlled for precision. In combat, a platoon operates on the primary frequency, but each tank can switch to alternate channels for specific coordination. A company commander monitors multiple frequencies simultaneously. Richter felt the blood drain from his face as tactical implications cascaded through his analytical mind. While German tank platoons typically operated with radio silence until contact, then relied on flag signals and predetermined maneuvers, American units could coordinate continuously throughout battle. Information could flow instantly between tanks. Positions could be adjusted dynamically. Tactical opportunities could be exploited the moment they developed. As the morning test session concluded, Richter found himself staring at an ordinary-looking radio that had revealed the extraordinary scope of German tactical blindness. Superior armor thickness and gun caliber meant nothing if the enemy could coordinate 5 tanks against one, sharing targeting information and positioning data in real time. Weber voiced the question that hung between them like smoke from a burning panzer. How many American tanks carry this equipment? Mac's slight smile carried the weight of industrial democracy triumphant over technical aristocracy. 300,000 of them, sir. Every single one. Sleep had eluded Richter through the long Brandenburg night. Each time he closed his eyes, technical specifications swirled through his consciousness like equations that refused to balance. 25 watts against 10. Frequency modulation against amplitude modulation. 10 preset channels against single frequency operation. By dawn, he had filled 6 pages of his leather-bound notebook with calculations that painted an increasingly disturbing picture of German technological disadvantage. The morning's systematic testing began with clinical precision. Richter had arranged for 2 additional German radio operators to assist with range and clarity measurements, while Weber coordinated from various positions across Kumersdorf's expansive testing ground. Mac observed with studied indifference, occasionally offering technical clarifications when directly questioned but volunteering nothing that approached tactical intelligence. "Frequency stability test first," Richter announced, adjusting the SCR-508's crystal-controlled oscillator. The immediate response impressed him despite his growing professional anxiety. German FUG-5 systems required constant manual tuning to maintain frequency accuracy, particularly after the vibration and heat stress of combat operations. The American system locked onto its assigned frequency and held position with mechanical precision that eliminated the operator skill factor entirely. Weber's voice crackled through the headphones from 800 meters with clarity that made Richter wince. His own Tiger tank's radio would have struggled to maintain intelligible communication at half that distance, especially with engine noise and battlefield interference. Reception strength excellent, Weber reported. No static, no frequency drift detected. Richter increased the range systematically. 1,000 meters, 1,500, 2,000. In each interval, the SCR-508 maintained voice quality that exceeded his best expectations for German equipment under ideal conditions. When Weber reached the testing ground's maximum range of 3,000 meters, his transmission remained clear enough for tactical coordination that would have been impossible with standard Wehrmacht radio gear. The engineering philosophy, Richter murmured, more to himself than to Mack. The system assumes constant communication rather than emergency use only. Mack shifted uncomfortably, recognizing dangerous territory. American doctrine emphasizes coordination, sir. Tank platoons work as teams rather than individual vehicles. The implication struck Richter with the force of revelation. German tank tactics assumed radio silence until contact, then relied on preset battle plans and visual signals for coordination. Commanders expected individual tank crews to execute predetermined maneuvers based on training and experience. But if American crews could coordinate continuously, sharing information and adapting tactics in real time, every engagement became a contest between isolated German units and networked American teams. Demonstrate the intercom integration, Weber requested through the radio as he returned from the range testing. His tone carried professional interest tinged with growing concern. Mack activated the internal communication system, and Richter immediately understood why American tank crews fought with superior coordination. The intercom operated on independent power circuits, immune to radio damage or electrical interference. Tank commanders could coordinate with their crews while simultaneously maintaining external communications with other tanks. German crews typically shouted over engine noise or relied on physical signals, losing precious seconds in critical moments when coordination meant survival. In combat situations, Mack explained carefully, the tank commander monitors the platoon frequency while coordinating with his crew through the intercom. If the main radio is damaged, the intercom continues functioning. Any crew member who survives can operate the radio system once a tank takes casualties. Weber's face went dark as he absorbed what this meant tactically. German radio procedures demanded specially trained operators and intricate maintenance routines that most soldiers simply didn't possess. Most panzer crews had just one man who could repair radios or handle the more complex operations. American practicality had beaten German sophistication through straightforward battlefield engineering. Richter prepared for his most demanding test, operating multiple channels at the same time. He worked through the SCR-508's 10 preset frequencies, each one held steady by its own crystal, while Weber coordinated with other German operators across the testing ground. What emerged from this demonstration challenged everything they thought they knew about tank warfare. A platoon leader keeps watch on the main frequency to coordinate the whole unit. Mack pressed on, his professional pride getting the better of his tactical judgment. But individual tanks have the option to jump to different frequencies when they need to handle specific tasks. Reconnaissance missions, calling in artillery support, arranging medical evacuation. Commanders can monitor several frequencies without losing track of any of them. The numbers made Richter's stomach turn. German tank companies typically fielded just 3 or 4 radios total, which created communication problems that forced commanders to stick rigidly to predetermined plans no matter what happened in battle. American companies put 20 to 30 radios to work in constant back-and-forth communication, which gave them freedom to shift tactics on the fly whenever the situation changed. Information moved instantly through American formations while German units operated essentially cut off from each other. Weber came back as Richter finished his frequency tests. He looked troubled. That coordination capability, he said quietly, goes beyond anything we have in German doctrine. If American tanks could trade targeting information instantly, they could, Mack finished the thought. A tank commander spots a target his guns can't reach, so he sends the coordinates to other tanks positioned where they can hit it. The whole platoon concentrates its firepower on targets that matter instead of spreading shots everywhere randomly. Richter felt his confidence as a professional draining away as he grasped just how enormous the American tactical advantage really was. Having better armor and bigger guns meant nothing if the enemy could throw multiple tanks at your single vehicle, pooling what they saw and focusing their fire whenever they wanted. German victories that commanders had blamed on American manpower advantages might actually have come from systematic teamwork that beat individual excellence every time. He did the math out loud about the manufacturing resources needed to give every tank this kind of communication capability. The slight smile on Mac's face carried meaning that went way beyond just radio engineering. Detroit manufactures them the way they build automobiles, sir. Assembly line production with interchangeable parts, trained operators instead of experts in every specialty. Every Sherman crew member can fix their radio with standard tools and standard replacement components. Richter suddenly saw with harsh clarity how different German manufacturing thought was. Sophisticated German radio systems needed specialized technicians, custom-made components, and complicated maintenance procedures designed for peaceful workshop conditions. American equipment got built for battlefield repair by regular soldiers using ordinary tools. Simplicity and dependability won out over complexity and theoretical superiority. As the afternoon wore on and shadows stretched across the test site, Richter gathered measurements that proved German technological shortcomings in black-and-white scientific terms. The SCR-508 beat the Funker 5 across every single measure that could be quantified, while asking less of operators and requiring far less upkeep and technical know-how. But something more important had emerged from his work, a revelation about strategy itself. American armor operated as interconnected networks, while German tanks fought as separate, isolated weapons. Weber studied Richter's initial calculations with the unhappy look of a career military man watching a complete defeat unfold systematically. This coordination advantage, he finally said, might matter more than just having more tanks. German tactics rest on individual tank commanders being excellent. American tactics rest on all the tanks working together as one. Richter acknowledged this, his engineer's brain already working through what German factories would need to do to catch up on radios. Retrofitting production lines, retraining personnel, rethinking how tactics worked. All changes demanding resources Germany had already spent and time the war wasn't going to allow. The Sherman they'd captured showed them not just better gear, but a completely different way of thinking about tank warfare that turned ordinary machines into something like a collective organism with a shared mind. The crew watched Richter come to his understanding with a kind of satisfied quiet, grasping that this tank's technology embodied something bigger than just military equipment. American industrial democracy had built weapons. Ordinary troops could operate efficiently, while German technical excellence had engineered sophisticated systems only specialists could maintain. This distinction was deciding battles across North Africa and would soon control how the whole conflict ended. Oberst Heinrich Müller's summons reached Weber's living quarters before sunrise, asking him to get to Kumersdorf immediately to offer military analysis regarding American tank capabilities. Weber had piloted Tiger tanks through the grueling North African campaigns and had accumulated enough battlefield knowledge to understand that staying alive meant learning what the enemy could do, rather than pretending they couldn't. The captured Sherman offered intelligence value that might spare German lives, if what they discovered could actually be put into practice before American numerical advantages made individual improvements meaningless. Weber got to the testing ground just as Richter finished his initial technical assessment. He discovered the radio engineer bending over sheets of calculations, revealing an increasingly troubling pattern of German communication disadvantages. Richter's mathematical precision impressed Weber, but the tactical conclusions from that math frightened him. If American tank units coordinated instantly while German forces worked mostly blind, every fight would pit networked knowledge against isolated expertise. Oberleutnant Richter welcomed him and gestured toward the captured Sherman with obvious dissatisfaction. Your frontline background might help us understand observations that contradict our basic tactical thinking. This radio setup seems engineered for continuous information sharing, not just emergencies. Weber stepped into the Sherman's commander spot and immediately noticed how differently the Americans had arranged their space compared to his Tiger's cramped quarters. American engineers had valued crew productivity over armor thickness, building an operator's area where exhausted soldiers could actually function when under fire. The radio setup particularly grabbed his attention. Controls positioned logically, frequency labels easy to read, wiring that let the crew talk to each other and to other tanks at the same time. During North Africa, Weber began explaining with precision, American tank tactics appeared disorganized to us. Individual Shermans seemed weak, not armored well, and not heavily armed like our panzers. But their unit teamwork sometimes produced outcomes that individual superiority couldn't account for. Mac paid attention to their exchange with the focus of someone who recognized competent tank commanders on different sides discussing combat facts that mattered more than national boundaries. Weber's courteous manner and pointed technical questions suggested legitimate military expertise rather than ideology, so Mac felt comfortable sharing technical details about American advantages without endangering actual operations. Weber switched on the SCR-508 and suddenly grasped why American crews coordinated so much more effectively. The voice transmission came through clearly, no confusing degradation, and the internal communication system let tank commanders talk with their team while staying connected to other units outside. 10 preset frequencies provided coordination options that didn't exist in any German tactical manual. February 14th at Kasserine Pass, Weber said abruptly as memory snapped into focus. My company got hit by American armor positioned but defensively. Our tanks got better kill ratios individually, but American units pulled back and counterattacked with coordination that shouldn't have been possible without signals we could see. Richter looked up from his work and waited for the tactical details. Weber's memory of that engagement produced precise analysis. Initial fighting around 0700 hours, 5 Shermans holding positions along the ridgeline, opening fire at maximum effective distance as our lead tanks came forward. Normal German procedure meant each tank would maneuver individually to get a firing angle. But American tanks disengaged at the identical moment without any signals we detected. Mac felt uncomfortable shifting positions, recognizing military intelligence approaching sensitive operational details. But Weber's analysis concerned capabilities rather than specific tactics, staying inside the professional boundaries soldiers understood without discussion. That pullback coordination Weber kept going, needed information sharing visual signals simply could not provide. The terrain screened line of sight between their vehicles, yet they moved in perfect synchronization. Our communications intercept found nothing, but our listening gear was built for German radio frequencies. Richter's expression shifted as he recognized what this meant. American FM radios on different channels would have been completely invisible to German AM monitoring. Their teamwork seemed like magic because we couldn't actually detect how they communicated. Weber nodded with grim certainty. After that initial exchange, American reinforcements showed up right on schedule, positioned perfectly. No delays waiting for information to travel, no confusion about where to go. They understood precisely where to establish positions for best effectiveness. That engagement stayed with Weber because despite technical superiority, it felt like tactical defeat. German tanks had superior kill ratios from better armor and guns, but American units controlled the fight through intelligence sharing and dynamic adjustment. The advantage had gone to the force that could think as a collective rather than fight as individuals. "Show us your communication tactics," Weber requested, his military curiosity overwhelming diplomatic caution. Mac paused before offering a sanitized demonstration. A tank commander identifies a target beyond his gun's effective range and radios coordinates plus target description to other tanks positioned to engage it. Multiple guns can concentrate on priority targets while remaining alert for threats. A platoon leader tracks everything being said and adapts platoon tactics instantaneously. Weber felt his basic understanding of tactics reorganizing as this sank in. German doctrine assumed individual commanders would act independently after watching their local area and following predetermined plans. American doctrine depended on information flowing constantly, so units could adjust tactics in real time throughout the engagement. This difference meant ordinary tanks functioned as integrated parts of a unified system with collective intelligence. The effectiveness multiplier Richter calculated would reach 4 or 5 times, 5 tanks coordinating as one unit versus 5 tanks fighting separately. Weber's combat record confirmed those numbers. At Kasserine, he remembered, American armor achieved tactical surprise through coordination seeming impossible given their inferior hardware. Now I comprehend their inferior hardware was actually our misunderstanding of their capabilities. The captured Sherman displayed not merely technological advancement, but a completely alternative approach to armored conflict. German tactical doctrine prioritized individual tank proficiency and predetermined battle schemes. American tactical doctrine prioritized shared knowledge and situation-based adaptation. This fundamental difference clarified why German tactical victories repeatedly fell short of strategic achievements. Individual excellence could never bridge the gap created by coordination disadvantages. Mack observed the 2 German officers absorbing tactical insights that overturned their foundational combat assumptions. Weber's respectful competence and technical precision impressed him despite their conflicting positions. These represented serious military minds confronting uncomfortable realities about what determined combat success rather than ideological representatives dismissing adversary capabilities. The manufacturing aspect, Weber observed finally, transcends the immediate tactical situation. American production techniques capable of equipping every tank with advanced communication systems demonstrate manufacturing potential Germany simply cannot replicate. Richter acknowledged this, his technical perspective substantiating Weber's strategic analysis. Retooling German factories for equivalent communication systems would consume resources and calendar time circumstances simply won't permit. The technological disparity might prove insurmountable given present industrial constraints. Weber's gaze drifted toward the distant tree line. His military mind projected subsequent engagements where German individual capability would confront American collective teamwork. The calculations permitted no ambiguity. Coordinated ordinary systems would overcome isolated superior systems through methodical advantages transcending individual skill. The captured Sherman embodied considerably more than technological superiority. It represented an industrial democracy furnishing ordinary personnel with military systems engineered for practical battlefield deployment rather than technical complexity. Sherman methodology had delivered systems for specialists. American methodology had delivered systems for soldiers. That distinction determined the war's trajectory through accumulated tactical benefits, restructuring what became militarily achievable. Weber's somber silence reflected his recognition that his Tiger's superior protection and destructive capability signified nothing if American Shermans could work together 5 against 1 while his unit operated blind and separated. No amount of bravery could eternally counter methodical disadvantage. Testing resumed its 3rd day with Mack occupying an uncomfortable seat as Richter and Weber executed back-to-back equipment demonstrations with German and American radios operating simultaneously. For the initial instance following his imprisonment, Mack observed German communication systems functioning, and the comparison struck him powerfully. The technical disadvantage exceeded even American intelligence projections, disclosing systematic shortcomings, clarifying why German tank units appeared to conduct independent operations instead of coordinated actions. Richter had engineered the demonstration with mathematical precision, establishing transmission points identically distributed across the testing ground to evaluate comparative efficiency under standardized conditions. Weber worked at different ranges using either communication system, while Mack supplied technical guidance concerning American procedures. The measurements proved German communication shortcomings with mathematical precision, eliminating subjective judgment. The FG-5 transmission examination at 800 meters, Richter declared, beginning German radio operation. Weber's message emerged through heavy crackling, distorted by amplitude modulation's susceptibility to electrical noise. Nearby vehicle engines made half the message incomprehensible, demanding repetition to communicate elementary operational data. Mack winced, observing audio fidelity, finally comprehending why German tank formations appeared to fight autonomously throughout North African operations. The problems that bedeviled American tank crews, shouting over engine roar, maintaining contact while moving, getting targeting data through quickly. These everyday challenges became absolutely crippling, with radio equipment that demanded near-perfect conditions just to work reliably. When Richter switched to the American system, the difference was stunning. Weber's voice cut through like a knife, crystal clear, modulated in ways that rejected interference with almost casual superiority. Mac felt a flash of professional pride despite everything, despite being captured and interrogated. American industry had tackled practical problems that German technical brilliance had somehow managed to miss entirely. But Weber's transmission through the German set crackled with frustration. Reception difficult. Repeat those coordinates again. What should have taken 15 seconds stretched into nearly 2 minutes. The same message through the American SCR-508. 12 seconds. First-time comprehension. The vehicle operators understood the implications immediately. American tank crews could trade information 4 times faster than German crews, and in combat, that speed made the difference between living and dying. Richter checked his measurements again, his tone growing more deliberate. The German Fuji-5 operated effectively around 1,000 meters under battlefield conditions. The American system? 3,000 minimum, maybe 4,000 if conditions cooperated. Mac nodded slowly, understanding that these weren't just numbers, they were tactical intelligence. They explained German behavior he'd witnessed during firefights, rigid plans, slow to adapt, tanks fighting almost alone instead of as coordinated teams. Their radios forced them into that pattern. American crews never had to fight that way. Weber came back after the range testing finished, his face troubled. He sat quietly for a moment before speaking. Maybe our coordination problems come from the equipment, not from how we train. American crews seem better synchronized because their radios let them stay connected. Hours of drilling can't fix what the equipment won't let us do. Richter saw the opportunity and moved forward. Let's run a side-by-side test. German operators with single-frequency equipment against American operators using multi-frequency capability. He positioned them carefully, moving them to different locations while Weber coordinated scenarios from the Sherman's commander position. What emerged was startling. German radio operators using single frequency struggled to manage even 2 missions simultaneously. One request would back up behind another. They had to finish one task completely before starting the next. Meanwhile, information requests piled up waiting their turn. That consumed time, precious time, and exposed their radio positions to enemy detection. American multi-frequency capability eliminated all that. Tank commanders could work with supporting units on one frequency while listening to their platoon on another. Artillery requests, medical evacuations, supply runs, tactical maneuvers, all happening at once without stepping on each other or creating delays. Information moved continuously through American units while German forces worked through communication bottlenecks that strangled tactical options. Weber watched it happen, and his expression grew darker. At that city engagement, he said slowly, American units coordinated artillery, evacuations, and maneuvers all at the same time. German doctrine requires doing one thing, finishing it completely, then starting the next. Mack confirmed it. American doctrine assumes parallel operations. Tank commanders coordinate multiple missions because the radio equipment supports simultaneous operations. Tactical adaptation doesn't happen in phases, it happens continuously. Richter worked through the mathematics with cold precision. If American platoons coordinate 5 missions simultaneously, while German platoons must coordinate them one after another, American response time could be 5 times faster under equivalent conditions. The numbers supported everything Weber had observed in combat. American tank units achieved surprise not through individual superiority, but through coordination advantages that let them adapt faster to changing battlefield conditions. German doctrine built itself around communication limitations that American equipment had already eliminated. American industry, Mack explained carefully, cares about practical battlefield effectiveness. Equipment designed for ordinary soldiers operating under combat stress, rather than technical specialists in perfect workshop conditions. Weber understood what that meant. German equipment requires specialists, custom parts, expert maintenance. American equipment needs standard tools, interchangeable components, basic training. As battles extend, specialist personnel become casualties, Richter noted grimly. German systems degrade. American systems stay effective because any crew member can handle basic maintenance and repair. Mack watched their comprehension grow with complicated feelings. Professional pride in American engineering achievement mixed with sympathy for competent soldiers discovering disadvantages completely beyond their control. Weber and Richter weren't ideological opponents. They were serious military professionals discovering uncomfortable truths about warfare, truths that individual skill couldn't overcome. The demonstration shifted when Weber coordinated a hypothetical tank attack using American communication procedures. For the first time in his combat career, he experienced coordination without communication delays, without frequency conflicts, without transmission difficulties. The tactical responsiveness was so dramatic that Weber finally understood why American armor succeeded despite individual equipment disadvantages. Connected ordinary equipment defeats isolated superior equipment through systematic advantages that accumulate across multiple engagements, Weber said finally. The force multiplication effect means strategic outcomes regardless of individual tank superiority. Richter's calculations supported that assessment. American communication superiority provided advantages that German production capacity simply could not match, given current resources and time. The gap represented far more than superior engineering. It was an entirely different approach to weapons design that prioritized practical effectiveness over theoretical performance. Mack recognized that his tank's technology had revealed German vulnerabilities extending well beyond radio communications alone. American industrial democracy had created weapon systems that ordinary soldiers could operate effectively, while German technical aristocracy had produced sophisticated equipment that only specialists could maintain under ideal circumstances. That difference was determining battlefield outcomes through accumulated tactical advantages that would shape the war's ultimate resolution. The final morning at Kumersdorf arrived unseasonably warm, almost mocking the cold certainties Weber had carried through 3 years of armored combat. Richter's preliminary report lay spread across the testing facility desk, pages of calculations and technical analysis documenting American communications superiority with scientific precision. But numbers couldn't capture the emotional weight of professional assumptions collapsing under uncomfortable truth. Weber positioned himself in the Sherman's commander seat for the conclusive test. Richter had arranged 4 additional Tiger commanders to participate in a coordinated maneuver exercise, simulating platoon operations using borrowed American SCR-508 equipment. The maneuver advanced to phase line Alpha, Weber transmitted through the crystal-clear American radio. 4 simultaneous acknowledgements came back without static interference or transmission delays. Individual Tiger commanders could coordinate movements while maintaining constant contact with supporting elements, transforming rigid German doctrine into fluid adaptation. Mack watched from his position, recognizing tactical procedures that approached American methods while remaining distinctly German. Weber's command authority impressed him despite their opposing allegiances. These were serious military professionals exploring tactical possibilities. The coordinated advance proceeded with precision Weber had never experienced in actual combat. Tank commanders shared targeting information instantaneously, coordinated mutual support automatically, adapted to simulated battlefield changes without the communication delays that normally forced German units to depend on predetermined plans. Front-to-rear enemy armor bearing 270 degrees, Weber transmitted, initiating simulated engagement. German doctrine would normally require sequential coordination, identify threats, coordinate fire distribution, execute predetermined responses. But American radio capability allowed simultaneous coordination that compressed tactical decision cycles from minutes to seconds. 4 Tiger commanders coordinated targeting priorities while maintaining overwatch. Shared intelligence, allowing concentrated firepower against priority threats while preventing tactical surprise from unexpected directions. Weber experienced tactical awareness that German communication limitations had previously made impossible. Complete situational awareness that transformed individual tank excellence into collective tactical superiority. Richter documented coordination capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about armored warfare. German doctrine emphasized individual tank skill and rigid plans because communication limitations prevented real-time coordination. American doctrine emphasized collective intelligence and adaptive responses because radio capability supported continuous tactical evolution. The force multiplication exceeds theoretical projections, Richter calculated. 5 coordinated German tanks using American communication methods demonstrate tactical effectiveness approximately 4 times greater than 5 German tanks, using standard procedures. Weber felt professional vertigo as tactical certainties developed through years of combat dissolved. German armor superiority meant nothing if coordination limitations prevented effective employment of that superior equipment. Individual excellence couldn't overcome systematic disadvantage when the enemy possessed both numerical superiority and coordination advantages. Mack watched Weber process implications that explained American strategic confidence despite individual equipment disadvantages. Sherman tanks lacked Tiger armor protection and firepower, but Sherman platoons could coordinate 5 tanks against 1 through information sharing that German doctrine couldn't match. Accumulated tactical advantages transformed strategic possibilities in ways individual equipment comparisons couldn't reveal. Artillery coordination exercise, Weber announced, extending the demonstration to combined arms operations representing actual battlefield complexity. German doctrine typically required complex communication procedures to coordinate tank and artillery cooperation, creating delays that limited tactical responsiveness. American multi-frequency capability eliminated these bottlenecks entirely. The simulated coordination proceeded with fluency Weber had never experienced in actual combat. Tank commanders could request fire support on dedicated frequencies while maintaining tactical coordination with supporting armor, compressing response times from minutes to seconds. Close air support, medical evacuation, ammunition resupply, and tactical maneuver proceeded simultaneously rather than sequentially. This capability transforms every aspect of combined arms coordination, Weber transmitted through the American radio with growing professional despair. German tactical limitations result from communication constraints rather than doctrinal inadequacy. Richter nodded grimly. American industrial philosophy creates equipment enabling tactical innovation, while German industrial philosophy creates equipment constraining tactical evolution. That difference determines strategic outcomes through accumulated battlefield advantages. Mack recognized that his tank's technology had revealed German vulnerabilities extending far beyond radio communications. American industrial democracy had created weapon systems ordinary soldiers could employ effectively under combat stress. German technical aristocracy had produced sophisticated equipment requiring ideal conditions for optimal performance. Practical battlefield effectiveness defeated theoretical technical superiority through systematic advantages accumulating across multiple engagements. The final demonstration concluded with Weber coordinating a hypothetical company-level attack using American communication protocols. 20 German tanks maneuvering as a coordinated unit, sharing intelligence instantaneously, adapting tactics continuously, concentrating firepower dynamically. Tactical capabilities German doctrine had never imagined because German equipment had never supported such coordination. The strategic implications exceed tactical considerations, Weber said quietly. If American industrial capacity can equip every tank with sophisticated communication equipment while German capacity cannot match equivalent production, battlefield advantages compound into decisive strategic superiority. Richter's final calculations documented American advantages with mathematical precision, eliminating subjective interpretation. 5 American tanks coordinating through superior radio equipment achieved tactical effectiveness equivalent to 8 German tanks operating with standard communication limitations. Numerical superiority combined with coordination advantages created battlefield equations that individual German excellence couldn't overcome. Mack observed their professional recognition of systematic defeat with mixed feelings. Weber and Richter were competent soldiers discovering uncomfortable truths about industrial warfare, rather than ideological opponents receiving deserved punishment. Their tactical competence and technical sophistication meant nothing when faced with American production methods equipping ordinary soldiers with superior equipment designed for battlefield effectiveness rather than workshop sophistication. Weber sat in the Sherman's commander position as afternoon shadows lengthened across the testing ground, experiencing tactical possibilities that Tiger Tank's superior armor and firepower could never provide. Clear communication, instant coordination, dynamic adaptation. American armor thought as thinking organisms, while German armor fought as isolated platforms. The captured Sherman had revealed not just superior technology, but an entirely different philosophy of warfare that transformed ordinary equipment into extraordinary capability through systematic integration. Individual heroism and tactical skill couldn't overcome coordination disadvantages indefinitely, and Germany no longer possessed the industrial resources necessary to bridge the technological gap American engineering had created. Mack understood that his survival had acquired meaning beyond personal endurance. His tank's radio system represented American industrial democracy, defeating German technical aristocracy through practical solutions enabling collective effectiveness rather than individual excellence.